All right, there we go. We've got everything working. Good evening. My name is Douglas Hagren, and I want to welcome you to tonight's educational presentation, Strategies for Saving On and Not Just for College Costs. Some of you may have seen this promoted out there as uh, how to pay for college without going broke, which essentially means the same thing, right? If you're going to be taking on this intense process of selecting colleges, looking out for the one that you love, your children, maybe you have more than one child that's going to be going to college. Ultimately, there is going to be a cost of that decision. That cost is going to be something that you are going to be facing. And I know that's why you're here tonight. So I know that it's really important for you to be here because this is a very important topic for you. And we're going to get into some really valuable information this evening. So I appreciate you joining us. We've got a good turnout. We're looking to kind of see if anybody else is going to be joining us a little bit late here for a second. We've had a few people who have joined while I have been talking here. So again, thank you. We're going to go ahead and get started. For those that come late, they're just going to miss the most important part of today's occasion. But basically, the reason that you're here is that you have a very unique circumstance. And I want you to think about this for a second. Your family is looking at taking on what may be the greatest financial burden that you'll take on in your life. Now, that is going to be arguable because it may also include housing, right? These are two of the greatest things that we're facing, and especially as Generation X and those that might be on the younger end of baby boomers or the older millennials that are coming up right here in the thick of this, as we're getting hit with everything else. College costs are higher than ever. Every day that you delay planning is going to mean more out-of-pocket expenses. And families who don't start early enough, unfortunately, often find fewer and fewer options with higher bills. And so we want to make sure that this doesn't happen to you. And this information, just so you know, is it's general in nature. Everybody's personal financial situation is going to end up being very complex and very different. And due to this, we do offer a complimentary consultation to those who attended tonight, where we can take 30 minutes one-on-one time to assess your specific and individual situation. And we'll further discuss the details of that consultation later on tonight. Also stick around because at the end, we're going to have a couple of examples I want to go over with you about the value of proper planning and the outcome that it can create, which can lead to extraordinary opportunities. But before I begin, take a moment and imagine the peace of mind. Even close your eyes. I know it might seem a little bit cheesy, but close your eyes and think about this. Imagine the peace of mind that you'll feel knowing that you have a plan to pay for college. You're probably here with some concerns and some questions. What about your now thinking your child is secure, that they're safe, that they're thriving, and that you are financially secure as well, no matter what happens? And this is why we are so committed here at Emergent College Advisors around our process and why we love helping individuals better understand how to navigate this extremely complex and expensive financial obstacle that is paying for college. But before I get started, I'd like to ask a request. Raise your hand if you're okay, and you're welcoming my opportunity to share with you. I'd like to get your permission to talk about one quick story of what brings me here and what brings us together tonight and why I love what I do and why I'm so passionate. I see a few people are raising your hands, so I appreciate that you're allowing me to do that for you because I think it matters. And why are we here? And my story begins in 1993. I was a young man going to college. I went to Denison University, which is in Ohio. If anybody wants to talk to me about this, I can give you more details, but for sake of time, I had my own challenges in just trying to figure out which school that I wanted to go to. My parents were divorcing, and that led me to some pretty quick and unfortunately not necessarily well thought out choices on the school that I picked. And it turned out okay. But this isn't really about me at that point in my life. I was excited about the chapter of my life that I was going into afterwards. I had studied and majored in economics. I ended up graduating in 1997. I got out of college and kind of started working, a couple different corporations. And I found myself circling back to work alongside my dad. And it was meant a lot to me to work with him. I was kind of, I looked at him as a hero. He was very successful. And I wanted to be able to work with him and support him in some of his different business ventures. I happened to take a little trip in my mid 20s. I think it was 25. I traveled to Italy, and then all of a sudden, all of these dreams, all of that I had planned for changed on June 2nd, 2000. I got told at the airport after I just walked off, right after I got home, that my father had passed away. And all of a sudden, I'm quickly dealing with all of these things that need to be done. And as you can imagine, it's hard enough to lose your father, especially at a young age. But I now had to step into this role and really take on this almost parental position for me and my sister. And she was 6.5 years younger than me. And I found out really quickly my father did not necessarily do a lot of great planning. And so I actually discovered it was kind of the opposite. I mean, come to find out there were some pending potential bankruptcy issues and back taxes were owed, a lot of things that should have never happened. And I should have never been dealing with that. And when I was already dealing with, my own issues emotionally. But here we are, right? At a young age, I found myself dealing with things that I thought could never happen and never should happen. But one of the biggest things was, how do I take care of my sister? Because this is the part that really ties to this. She had just finished her first year of college in Boston. She was going to Emerson. Like that, my father was paying for that through what we call current income. He was paying for it through cash flow. And like that, there was no resources. There was no plan whatsoever. I mean, my mom was not in a position to help. As I said, my parents had gotten divorced. He was just winging it as he went along. So put us in a terrible position. And that forced me to scramble to figure out how to deal with a mess that had been left behind. And, that actually created, going through that over a couple of years, and thankfully successfully, but struggling in a lot of ways, emotionally and financially, to get her through college, it put a little call in my heart where I just realized, hey, I'm pretty good at this at a young age. I'm walking through this. And I recognized something. My father, my parents, there are ways that they could have avoided the stress, this financial strain, this uncertainty. So I made a commitment then that I wanted to go into the industry. And I actually wanted to be an estate attorney, but I decided to go into this industry and go into this to help as many people as possible avoid those same pitfalls or traps when it comes to planning for life in general. And with that, for the kids and for college and for retirement, for what they care about. So the reason I share this with you, my story here today, is that that's what brings me here. This is why I'm so passionate. This is why I've been helping individuals for over 20 years when it comes to planning for their families, for financial success, and especially for the kids. Again, I had to put my sister through college in my 20s. Okay, this is something that, you're just now coming up on. It's what really drives us, is thinking about our family, thinking about our kids. I have my own kids now, and I know now more than I did then when it came, and I know what I went through with my sister, my family, all of it. And now I've walked and talked to thousands of families over the years, and it's allowed me to help many, many people along the way. So I just appreciate you listening to that part of the story. I know that's not why you came here tonight, but I think it's important to understand why I'm passionate. And I felt it was important before we started this webinar, Paying for College Without Going Broke, that you know who I am, what I stand for, importantly, why I love what I do so much. And so thanks again for listening to that. I'm going to get into the real meat of this discussion today, and I'm excited to teach you more here today and hopefully eventually get to hear more of your stories and how I might be able to help you as well. So thank you very much. I appreciate you listening to that. So now let's get into the things that I've been able to learn over the years that I can help you with to allow you to be in the best possible situation. Tonight, I'm going to share with you strategies that will empower you to make informed decisions about college costs, okay? Insights many families have not received from financial advisors they work with or anybody, that they've turned to. And, maybe they've gone out on the internet, pulled a lot of information. It can be extremely overwhelming. So by the end of this presentation, you'll have actionable steps to help you protect your financial future and give your child the best education possible without going broke. Okay. Hundreds of families have attended this presentation. They've told us these strategies that they learned here were game changing. They were able to reduce out-of-pocket college costs significantly, and many were able to secure the scholarships that they never knew existed. So one thing I want to do, I want to make sure we set some expectations here for you, because you want to walk away with things that you're going to remember. And that is hard to do. I'm sure there's multitasking going on. Some of you might be, thinking about some of the political stuff that's going on tonight. But grab a pen or a pencil, have that ready to take some notes, and be prepared to put down some things. I'm going to try to, point that out along the way, things that I think are going to be very, very important for you to take notes on, so that after you walk away from this presentation, you're going to have some really good takeaways that are going to be actionable that you can use later. But before I go any further, another show of hands, if you don't mind. How many of you are just absolutely frustrated and tired of all the noise that is out there around applying to, paying for college, and are simply just looking for straightforward answers when it comes to how to pay for college without going broke? Boom, hands going up, hands going up, hands going up. Great. I see this all the time. Very rarely do I not see hands just jumping up there to the ceiling. This is exactly what we're going to work on tonight and talk about and accomplish with our time together. Let's face it. Let's just cut to the chase. College is expensive. There is no way around it. The reality is that only about 40% of freshmen who enroll are going to be able to actually graduate 4 years. That's a really ominous statistic, okay? So we go into this thinking 4 years, here's going to be the cost. Those that are actually looking at 4-year school, maybe you're looking at a 2-year school. But generally, that's the case, right? But many families are facing even higher costs than they initially expected, because it gets extremely expensive if a child ends up going any additional year. And to add to that challenge, over 500 colleges are now charging over $50,000 per year. And that's just for one child. Push that in your head for a second and run those numbers really quickly. It is no surprise that 73% of parents with children under the 18 worry about college funding more than any other issue. And tonight we're going to dive into how you can manage those daunting costs without sacrificing your financial security. One thing to be important, did you know, okay, sorry, that there's a little bit of a statistic. I deal with facts, research. I don't deal with opinions. There's a recent study in 2023 by Discover that 70% of parents of college-bound children are worried that about having enough money to pay for college. So if you're here tonight and you're feeling this way as well, the reason I read that statistic to you is you're not alone. Let's face some hard truth about these college costs. Okay, as we've seen, the average cost for 4 years of public university is nearly $100,000, and a private college can run up to $235,000. If that's that's going to be if your child graduates on time. The reality is that about 60% of freshmen are going to manage to graduate in 6 years, which means even higher costs. And for many families, this can actually push that total cost above $250,000 for one child. Now, I know costs have expanded a lot in the real estate market, but it wasn't that long ago. $250,000 was the price of a house. And you're looking at doing that over 4 years. When you get a mortgage, it can be for 30. So it's no wonder that recent Sallie Mae report found that 60% of families just aren't saving enough for college because they are citing a significant shortage of income as the reason. We've seen the reports. Inflation's going through the roof. Everything's gotten more expensive. My utility bill alone is 3 times what it was a year ago or 2 years ago. And I'm sure you feel the same way. So to bridge the gap between these soaring college costs and available sources and all of the other things that are hitting you, more and more families are turning these student loans. And while they can be a tool, going into these loans because you don't have enough to pay for it can severely limit all of your future financial opportunities, as well as those for your child. But as I said, tonight we're going to explore how you can navigate those challenges and make informed decisions that hopefully won't jeopardize your family's financial future. Now, what I have discovered is that many financial advisors, by not addressing college planning, are putting your retirement at significant risk. I state that and pause because you came here probably thinking, well, how do I get the cost of college down? But it's imperative to understand from the beginning of this conversation the alignment between what paying for college is and retirement. A Forbes article in 2019 highlighted a major issue, that the severe lack of preparation amongst financial advisors when it comes to guiding clients through college planning has resulted in significantly suboptimal outcomes for families who rely on those professionals for advice. So if you're if you're putting, working with a financial advisor right now, say I got someone working on retirement, most of the time they're just managing your investments. The reality is if they're not addressing college as part of your plan, it's not holistic. And it would be the same approach for retirement without college as it is if I were to sit here today and say, you know what, college is easy, just liquidate your retirement account. That would be nuts. You know that inherently would be crazy, but that's the approach they're taking by not addressing it. Over 20 years, the percentage of students from higher income families, defined as making over $114,000 a year, who take out loans to get a bachelor's degree more than doubled from 30% in the mid 90s to 60% now. And that was a new report that came out from the American Enterprise Institute. And there's countless articles. Journal of Financial Planning talks about gaps in financial risk for families, unexpected, especially if there's unexpected events like job loss, disability, or medical emergencies. Again, under what circumstance do you want your child to have to drop out of college or transfer or take on an exorbitant amount of debt because something unexpected changed? Those risks can derail short-term and long-term financial goals. And as I said, this is not just an issue for lower-income families. Affluent families are finding more and more risk of depleting savings or retirement accounts to cover education. I just saw an article 2 weeks ago that talked about more and more retirees are liquidating retirement to deal with the cost of cancer. So if healthcare and all these other issues and inflation and all these other things are hitting, it's critical that the decisions you make today on how to pay for college put yourself in the best financial possibility. The IRS, the US News, the Federal Reserve, the American Psychological Association talking about the mental stress and mental health. Again, plenty of resources out there on this. It is something that must be addressed today if your future is going to be important to you. It is a deeply emotional issue for parents, okay? Get it. Love your children. And more than anything, go back a couple generations, they pretty much just slapped you on the back and said, go get them. But we have found we want to provide more for our kids. We want to help them succeed. And that has resulted in significant financial sacrifices being made by more and more families to ensure their future. And many parents are doing it. They're just taking decisions and finances and risks that jeopardize retirement savings. As I said, even those affluent families, as the research shows, are not immune. And that may start, well, that may start with more financial resources. It also ends up, for those that have more financial resources, often end up choosing more expensive top schools, especially then going into it without an efficient plan. And then think about this too. If you have a higher income, you probably also have a higher lifestyle expense to support now and in the future, all from finite resources. So it leads to a big question. Will you, as parents, be able to achieve both goals, funding college and securing your retirement? Or are you going to have to choose one over the expense of the other? It's a domino. We believe you can plan for college and coordinate that with your retirement future. This is a retirement planning conversation. So let's talk a moment about opportunity cost and what it means to pay for college versus saving for retirement. Opportunity cost is the cost of spending money. Okay? Everybody knows the cost of borrowing money. It's, they show you the interest rate. This is what you're going to pay. Less people are aware of the cost of actual cash or using money. So using this example of public versus private costs, you can imagine starting with $100,000 on a 4-year public education, $25,000 each year. Now, instead of paying for college, that $100,000, imagine if it was invested annually, accumulating over the years until retirement. The financial outcome of keeping that money working for you would be significant. For instance, the first $25,000 investment would have about 14 years to grow on average, and the second would have 13 years and so on. Now, what this shows is the amount that could have been put into your savings and retirement account if those funds hadn't been used for college costs. So again, if you had $100,000 that you didn't have to spend for a public institution, after 15 years, that could potentially grow on an average 7% return to $234,000. And after 20 years, another $100,000. So that's $100,000 could be $328,000 in your back in your pocket if you didn't have to spend it. Now, those private schools at 235,000, you're talking almost $750,000. So what's the key takeaway? The key takeaway is understanding the cost of money, understanding the cost of using other people's money, and having a well thought out plan for funding college is going to be essential for you to protect both your child's future and your own retirement goals. When I work with families, I make sure this is imperative and we don't waver from that part of the process to make sure that they're taken care of. Now, I gave you some costs there. Now, understand that's just for one child. Now, I do meet with families that only have one child, but I'm sure for many of you, you have two, maybe even three. So once again, take those numbers we just talked about there. One cost for one at a public school could be $300,000 for your retirement, or private school, $750,000. Two kids, you're talking the potential of over $1 million decision that's being made here. But got good news for you. College planning isn't just about saving for college. It is also about saving on the cost of college. So when it comes to college planning, there is no one size fits all solution. Be aware of that. Every one of you is different. It is about understanding the intricacies of the very complex process that lays ahead of you and knowing how to apply those various aspects of college admissions, planning, and funding to your unique situation. And with the right knowledge and strategy, you can significantly reduce the financial burden and ensure that both you and your child are set up for success. But let's take a step back for a second. Let's discuss a few of the basics and terms that you need to understand before doing anything. Because if you're going to jump into this, you're going to have to understand what you're hearing and what that means to you. This might be a good time to grab that pencil, write it down. Because there's three critical terms you're going to hear all the time that you need to understand. The first is cost of attendance. There's SAI, which is also known as Student Aid Index, formerly the EFC, Expected Family Contribution. Some of you may have heard that, and Demonstrated Need. Cost of attendance. This is the total estimated cost of attending a college, including all potential costs the school feels you're going to have to pay: tuition, room and board, books, and other expenses. Let's call this the pre-discount sticker price. In other words, this is the most you'd have to pay if you decided to blindly just write a check. The SAA or EFC is going to be the number that represents the amount the government, or in some cases the school themselves, estimates that you can contribute to college costs. It's generally going to be the minimum that a family is going to have to pay for college to go to that school. And it's determined based on income and assets and other things we'll get into. And then demonstrated need. Now, this is really important if you're looking for need-based financial aid, because this is the difference between cost of attendance and your student aid index. It's the amount the colleges may consider when determining whether or not to give you eligibility for financial aid. Now, there's one more. It's the last one. It's called net cost. Now, this is the most important number because net cost is the amount you're actually going to have to pay after any financial aid or scholarships is applied. Now, remember, there is another form that's called the CSS profile that is going to be used by about 400 schools that is going to determine a different number. Keep in mind as you go through this process that they're going to look for different information and they're going to potentially have a different financial outcome for you when they use those details from that form. I want to start with that student aid index I was talking about, that EFC, okay? The financial need is determined by a simple formula. Cost of attendance minus student aid index, that equals financial need. The colleges will take that SAI, and then what they will do is they'll look at, they'll determine a number based on your family's income and assets, age of the parents, number of people in the household, and they're going to look at what those assets and income are for both the student and the parent. And as I said, in essence, it's the minimum you're expected to contribute. Most people will pay more than that. And the financial information that you provide on FAFSA, which most public schools use, or the CSS profile, which again is used by about 400 schools, mostly private, is what's going to calculate that number. Understanding the index is key to navigating all of this financial aid process. And it's also important that you start very early if this is important to you, because sometimes there are things, I'm going to show you an example today of some really simple moves that were made to help a family get a very low cost of attendance and lower the cost of school. But for many families and strategies, you can't do this all at once. So waiting too long could limit the opportunities that are available. We're going to use the SAI terminology as we go forward today, just to kind of keep things simple. We're going to use it whether it's public or private, even if and we're also going to assume any of them use FAFSA, just to keep things simple. We're not going to talk about the CSS profile much today. So as we look at these schools, you can see here, public or private, cost of attendance significantly different, right? Public school, $22,000, private school, $60,000. Families SAI in this case, because it was just FAFSA, is the same for both. So the demonstrated financial need is 22 minus 15 or 7 for the public school, and 60 minus 15 or 45 for the private school. Significantly different number of what those schools think the financial need is going to be for that family based on their starting cost. So let's walk through a great example of one student's financial aid package. First, you have the cost of attendance at a public university. Next, we'll have the student aid index we mentioned before, the 15,000. And then we're going to subtract that out, and you're going to end up with that $7,000 need. What the school then stepped up and did is they're going to offer scholarships and grants, which don't have to be repaid, as well as federal work study or student loans. In this particular case with the public university, you can see all they gave was a $5,500 loan. So after subtracting all that aid from the financial need, if there is any positive number net left, and in this case, an example there is, it's called unmet need. So just because there is a financial need demonstrated does not necessarily mean that school is going to cover all of it. Some schools are very generous and some are extremely limiting of what they'll offer. And therefore, that $1,500 is unmet. That goes back. And that's why I said the SAI is usually going to be the minimum, but most people are going to pay more because that unmet need is going to now be something you'll have to come up with. Okay? So you can see here that once you add in that unmet need, the total cost of the parent ends up being $16,500 at this public school, which started at $22,000. But now we're going to look at the same situation for a private school. The private school was $60,000. I know many of you listening to this may have already started your college search and said, I'm not going to look at private schools, they're too expensive. But hear me out. That sticker price scares a lot of people away who would end up paying less for college. It is the greatest source of financial aid is going to come from private schools. Here's an example where that SAI was the same, but the demonstrated need becomes significantly more at $45,000. And this school, a generous school that covers all of that gap, offers a write-off of the complete $45,000 of financial need, leaving zero unmet need, zero gap. We take that SAI of $15,000 and add a $0 gap. The net result is the same $15,000. And in this situation, the public school that looked like it was almost $40,000 cheaper is actually $1,500 more expensive per year. Now, keep in mind, many schools don't give 100% of that gap. But the key takeaway here is if you're not expanding your college list and taking a look at actually a list that includes public and private schools, you may be actually missing out on schools that, if they aren't less expensive than your local public school, they might be a great experience for your child at a similar cost. Now, surprisingly, due to the family's EFC and private school stronger ability to meet financial aid, the school that, as we said, initially seemed out of reach ends up costing less out of pocket. Why is that? Because private colleges often end up costing families the same or less as public universities, as I said. And the number of reasons why this occurs is that there's going to be need for them as a business to compete differently than a public school. Okay, they are going to actually have to deal with competition and survival. They need to attract students that may otherwise choose those lower price schools. And if they fail to do so, They risk losing the students and they actually risk going out of business. So competition will drive them to more attractive financial aid offers. The other one is what we call endowment power. Okay. Private schools just often have more donations, more substantial endowments. There are some public schools out there that do have large endowments, and they also tend to be more giving. But these schools that have these endowments can use these funds more flexibly than, a state university can. And public schools that rely on heavily on state or federal aid with strict rules are very handcuffed, where private schools can allocate their money however they wish. And that allows many of them to use this predominantly to provide discounts to the students that they really want most to enroll. And that's really important to know too, is that schools will give more money to the students they want the most. And that also means that the third piece there is what we call bidding wars. Okay. And those bidding wars are going to be based on looking at a student that is looking at a different school, and they know they might lose that school due to that school. There are ways that you can look at which schools consider other schools their main competition. And so they will use those endowment funds to go after those more desirable candidates and outbid each other. And that means they could even match or even exceed financial aid from other schools. So it is extremely important. Be very open. Make sure you're sharing what offers you get, because it may end up resulting in a school giving you more money that they weren't giving you up front because they were concerned about losing you to this other school. And so in short, that competition and those financial resources that they use and leverage are there to attract those top students and result in them being more affordable in some cases than public universities may be for families. So now we're going to move forward into some very valuable tips that you can use to reduce your cost. First of all, let's talk about where your help's coming from and who's your friend. Okay. Very importantly, and I've talked to families about this, like, oh, I talked to the financial aid officer and they're so, helpful and telling me all to do these things. Okay. They are there to help you. Let's not downplay that completely. But remember, these schools are businesses. Therefore, as an employee of that business, the financial aid officer's job is first and foremost to protect the college's assets and minimize the amount of money that they give away. So what is your job? It's to leverage all the financial aid rules and strategies you can to reduce the contributions to the college as much as possible. There's a gentleman named Kelman Cheney who's the author of Paying for College Without Going Broke, and he emphasizes the critical perspective that understanding that the financial aid office is not just there to help you, but also to protect the institution resources is a key important note. Your role is to strategically navigate those rules and maximize financial aid and minimize your out-of-pocket expenses. Now, what are some of the keys to getting a discount? First of all, when a student is at the top of the applicant pool, the odds of receiving a tuition discount or scholarship increase significantly. So it is extremely important to take a look at being in the top 20% of applicants. Many students, they do very well in school and they have expectations of being rewarded for that. But unfortunately, when they apply to the schools, their actual academic credentials do not match with the top 20%. So if it's important to you to get the discounts or be able to get those opportunities, you need to go into this understanding what those schools' current applicant pools look like and where that student competes. Okay. Ultimately, you need to be able to put what we call buyer colleges in your college list. These are going to be schools that use tuition discounts and increase financial aid to attract students. They need to fill those classrooms, and so therefore they're going to be more likely to give generous scholarships and discounts. 85% of kids apply to the same 50 schools. Okay, keep that in mind. The most popular schools out there have a laundry list of families that are of candidates that are looking at. And you need to expand that universe, because what we call of those schools is seller schools. They're more selective. They don't need to offer those significant discounts. They are the haves and emissions. Everybody wants to apply to them, particularly those top students. And typically, they only offer financial aid to those who need it or are truly exceptional. So then you want to make sure that you're going and realizing your list needs to include those buyer schools too that are going to be more generous. That's where you're going to get that competition potentially. You also want to expand your radius. I know a lot of families are going to say, well, we just want to do something really, really close. And if that's critically important to you, you have to keep in mind the happiness and well-being of your family. But understand you may uncover more options by expanding that search. Some schools are actively seeking a geographically diverse student body and will offer discounts to attract students from outside the region. University of California schools, they don't give the discount from outside their region, but there is a higher likelihood of getting into those schools for out-of-state students than there is for in-state students. They're trying to draw people to California. So that's just one example where you might find opportunities of admissions or discounts by expanding that search. You also want to create that competition, or I'm sorry, create that competition is leverage. The more schools you apply to, especially those buyer schools, the more you can get a chance of receiving a discount, and then you can use that as a bargaining chip with your top choice schools, leading them to improve the financial aid package before you commit. And this is a really, really important one, okay? You need to make sure that you're completing the financial aid forms. Those financial aid forms are something that a lot of families, maybe you're listening thinking, what's the point of filling out FAFSA? I'm not going to get any money anyway. Well, the reality is it's a critical step and it's required for federal aid. And many states also require it as the first step to get any kind of aid, including merit aid. So you need to make sure you fill out those forms. And the earlier you complete the forms, the better your chances are of securing financial aid. So you don't want to delay. But no matter what your income bracket is, you want to fill out those forms, because if not, you're telling the schools, don't give me any money at all. I don't care. I don't want it. If that's you, raise your hand. I have yet to meet anybody who legitimately says, I don't want free money that they might hand to me. So fill out those forms so you have the chance to get what you deserve. Now, I want you to grab your pen again and write this down. Really important note. The three main sources for covering college costs: free money, cheap money, and family resources, including loans. Okay, the goal of financial aid planning is very simply to make sure that you have strategies that are going to be able to allow you to increase the financial aid that you get and lower your costs. Okay, you need to understand the debt financing that's going to be need to be able to cover any shortfall. Okay, it's going to be one of these things where you also want to be able to unlock merit scholarships. Many families miss out on those valuable scholarships because they're not available. As I said, some families don't apply for, fill out any financial aid forms and they just don't get it. And they're not just for top students. The average discount at private schools across the country is 56%. So this is definitely not just for top students. These discounts are available for many, many more families than you may realize. Okay. And at the end, loans can be used strategically in the right planning circumstance that could actually benefit you. But if you're going into this not being able to afford a school, it's important that with the lack of planning and strategy, you minimize the need for loans. Reducing the gap between costs and available financial aid is crucial. Every dollar that you save in loans is a dollar that won't accrue interest. It's a dollar you can earn interest on, and that makes a big difference in the total cost of college. So this planning is really critical in order to reduce that gap. And also keep this in mind that all of the impact of paying for a loan that you take on today is going to impact your future income your future income, because you're going to have to be able to manage how to cover future rising expenses while still servicing a loan that you took on for expenses today. Now, first thing you're going to do is submit FAFSA or CSS profile. That's going to, obviously increase your chances of financial aid eligibility based on a lower EFC. But once you submit it, it is very difficult to change that EFC later, that SA later. You can appeal to financial aid administrators, but your options become more limited. So this is critical. Before you do any submissions, I say this, a lot of times people get rushed to submit FAFSA as soon as it opens. My philosophy is this: do it right before you do it fast. Know the requirements, Know the forms that are determined by each school on your list. I had a client that wanted to submit the CSS profile to a school that didn't require it, and they would have given information that would have caused their cost to go up. Thankfully, we stopped them before they did it. There was a caveat of when to use it only for foreign nationals, and they didn't read the information right. So you've got to know the requirements. You also have to understand the EFC calculation, how it's calculated, what's assessed, the weight they carry, because that knowledge can be crucial for making informed decisions and then planning strategically. You can sometimes move things around. Plan around your prudent retirement goals. Do certain things today that will end up giving you a lower SAI and more financial aid later. But again, it's sometimes very difficult to implement all those strategies at once. So the sooner you start, the more likely you're able to do it. And if you do not know all of those strategies and where to look, it's critical you're getting that guidance that you need to find it. Okay. Ultimately, doing it right can save you thousands. Not doing it can cost you thousands. Now, understand there's some big changes that have happened as well starting in 2024, and it's going to be going on in the future. We can talk about this a little bit more, but you want to understand there might be some opportunities to accelerate some charitable contributions that could pay more in base years, but lower your SAI later. Okay, that's something you work on. Maximizing IRA contributions, again, lowering income, that's going to lower your SAI potentially. Also looking at avoiding capital gains. One of the most critical things that I see all the time that's an incredible mistake. If you are within 2 years of going to college and you have a financial advisor that is recommending that you do a rollover, you need to stop right now, turn around and run for the door and immediately realize you don't have any kind of comprehensive financial plan. Because I see this increasingly from families who come to me and they'll have an SAI or an EFC that's twice the cost of attendance for the college because they did a rollover that was recommended to them. Okay. It doesn't mean that that's going to permanently impact what you have for college, because again, you can go back and possibly appeal, but a rollover, even though it is not taxable, shows up as an available income asset on your tax return and immediately raises your SAI based on the calculation of income. So again, rollovers during these critical years, sometimes they make sense. But again, if you're working with someone that does not understand college planning, they could be blowing your financial aid based on their decision to try to have you move money that they can manage without doing financial planning. All right, let's grab those pencils again, because we're going to talk about where your assets can be and what's going to actually work for you and what's going to not work against you for your SAI. Okay. You got to understand, they're going to ask for information on FAFSA or the CSS profile, and it has to be legitimate. You cannot just arbitrarily label a savings account as a retirement account and exclude it from financial aid. Okay. The law is very clear about what assets can be excluded, and misclassification could cost you. Okay. So retirement accounts, what are those? Things like 401k, IRAs, SEPs, etc. It might be a perfect time to think about strategic spending. Taking a look at making sure that you made a big purchase, because that's possibly something that could reduce some assets if you got some cash around. It might be a time to maximize home equity. Rates have come down a little bit again. Strategically paying down home equity could lower your EFC, but again, that also makes inaccessible money. So if you need money for college, sometimes accelerating paying down your home might not be the best strategy. Not all schools assess equity the same way. Some schools do look at home equity. So before you make any of those decisions, it's important to have a consultation or look at college planning services that could help you navigate those complexities. Some other things you might do: leveraging cash value life insurance. Funds placed in cash value life insurance are completely excluded from all financial aid assessments. As a matter of fact, it is the only place that you can put money that nobody's asking about. Retirement accounts could be asked about. Home equity could be asked about. Taxable investments are always asked about. 529s are the number one thing that counts against you. Okay, so understand this. If there is a place to put money that might help you, then cash value life insurance is going to be the one that is going to help you the most. It is not right for everybody. We're not recommending it necessarily here, just understanding those assets. Because you also have to understand that sometimes withdrawals from that policy, cash value death benefits, could cause the policy to terminate, could possibly create an income for SAI. So again, it's complex. You need to make sure that's part of a plan if it's going to be the right fit for you, because it is perfect for certain people, but not for everybody. And you want to be cautious, but sometimes annuities make sense as well. But again, sometimes they could have early penalties depending on the structure. And you need to make sure that you're applying these strategies and optimizing them with financial aid eligibility to minimize your out of pocket. Again, this is not a simple thing. And if you don't fully understand this, then sit down with someone who understands, maybe that's us, who can go through these things with you and help you kind of look at how those things are going to work together and what effect they're going to have, not only on the cost of college today, but also your retirement future. Now, the other thing we're going to look at, is that you need to be aware that lack of knowledge is going to, result in lost financial aid. Okay, so here's a fact. A lot of families, very generous these days. A lot of grandparents have some assets. They want to give some money. If you give money to a child for college, you can actually reduce their financial aid eligibility significantly. So imagine if $15,000 was given to the grandchild, it may actually result in thousands of lost financial aid because of how those formulas assess gifts and assets owned by the student. So maybe instead of gifting now, consider waiting till after college to help pay off student loans. That way you avoid the impact of financial aid, still support the child's education. But most important takeaway here is when it comes to financial aid, the more you know, the more you can save. Strategic planning can make a huge difference in the total cost of college, and unfortunately, it can go both ways. Not knowing it can cost you thousands, depending on the circumstance, over your lifetime, maybe even millions of dollars. So taking a look at that free money, okay, where are you getting it? Merit-based scholarships, tuition discounts. Looking at how you're going to fill the gap in the shortfall, saving strategies, cash flow strategies, income and asset-based strategies. If you're a business owner, there's some incredible strategies for business owners that could help raise money for tax, help lower the cost of college based on tax strategies. There's strategies for grandparents. There's tax credit strategies, gifting strategies, loan strategies. Again, implementing a multiple range of strategic approaches can often result in greater savings of out-of-pocket costs than just relying solely on the financial aid offered by schools. Oftentimes, many, many more multiples of benefit to you than relying on those reduction of costs. And also, they offer more predictability and control for you as parents, unlike financial aid, which is ultimately determined by the school and, depending on your circumstances, could change year to year. So what about saving for college? Okay. What should you do? What are the ideal savings vehicles that you should take advantage that offer key benefits that you see on screen? Well, flexibility is going to be a top priority. Most people, and unfortunately, most people in the financial world say, hey, go ahead. You all got a college, kids coming, open a 529. They're great. They do have some significant tax benefits, and depending on the state you're in, could be an instant tax discount on state taxes, and obviously tax-free availability for the use of college. But it is counted significantly when it comes to financial aid calculation. So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution for everybody. There are many situations where 529s have not been a family's best strategy. I've helped unwind this for families to help them get more financial aid. And in many cases, it has led to increased total cost. So tailoring your approach to your specific needs is going to lead to better outcomes every time. And this is one reason that many families find value in having conversations and planning with us. Here comes some potentially the most important list you're going to write down. So grab those pens again. These are the costly mistakes that cost families. And knowing these means knowing how to avoid them. And they can lead to thousands of dollars in financial aid and tuition discount losses. First of all, I said it before, assuming you make too much money or your assets are too high, People will mistakenly believe they won't qualify because they have too much money or significant assets. And yes, that's sometimes true. But there are many factors like divorce, unusual expenses, multiple children in college, or caring for aging parents that can influence eligibility. Even families earning up to $200,000 can still qualify for need-based aid. Never guess and never assume when it comes to financial aid eligibility. Even if you don't qualify for need-based aid, as I said before, not filling out FAFSA could cost your family thousands in missed opportunities, such as merit aid, and we can explain why more during a free consultation. Now, next, okay, taking a look and rushing through the financial aid, financial aid. Now, this, by the way, the slide you're looking at right here, kind of out of order here, this is somebody's EFC, and you can see this is a family with an AGI of $290,000, and the EFC was $29,000. So all the schools selected by the family had a cost of attendance in this example of a family that was worked with of over $50,000 a year, making this family eligible for significant amounts of financial aid. So I just wanted to share with you one example that we threw in here to help you kind of see where even with a high income, that family was eligible for need-based financial aid. So write down number 2, rushing through the financial aid process. Don't rush. Key is accuracy. Said that before. Don't hurry. Get it right. Mistakes can be costly and they can be difficult to correct. Just meet the deadlines and ensure everything is accurate. Another one's going to be applying to too few schools. Okay. Really, ideally, you want to apply to 6 to 10 schools, maybe a little bit more. If you have less schools, you're going to have less chances of receiving a solid financial aid package, and then you're going to have less ability to leverage those better packages. So if you have more than 10 schools, you're going to be able to leverage that between the schools more ideally. And it is crucial, as I've said before, to include buyer schools on your list, and we can help you identify those. The next one, mistake, don't pick the wrong schools. It's essential to target schools where your child ranks in that top 20% of the incoming class on GPA, SAT. Schools will then offer more generous financial aid packages, more free money, fewer loans to attract those top students. This is an advantage of yours. Another one is assuming all financial aid is the same. It's not. Not all schools are going to offer the same financial package. Some are well endowed. Some might meet most or all. Others might not have the resources. So you need to understand the school's history of financial aid before applying to avoid disappointment, and ultimately, especially if that is a child's top choice. The next mistake is not knowing financial aid formulas. We talked about that before. There's assets and income that's included. There's assets and income that's not reported, and that could put your financial aid at risk. Where you keep your money matters. Again, we can help you with that. And if it's early enough, sometimes changes can be made that can end up with an extraordinary result and much less money owed to the school. The next is not applying at all. Again, not applying for financial aid goes back to what we said before. It's very simple. If you don't apply to schools, don't apply for financial aid, don't fill out those forms, then you're basically telling them, just charge me full price. Another one is picking the right professional, okay? My tax preparer, they can help me. Or my financial advisor, yeah, they've helped me, they're saving. Well, they're doing my retirement, but they don't do college. Well, again, the two things are integrated. If you're not doing one, if you're doing one without the other, you are putting yourself at risk. And CPAs and tax preparers specifically, they're not experts in this. They're experts in tax planning. They might suggest putting assets into a child's name to save on taxes. Boom. That drastically reduces your financial aid eligibility. Even small mistakes on those financial forms can be costly, and most tax professionals are not trained to fill it out correctly. In fact, the Department of Education says over 92% of all FAFSA forms have errors. I'm not saying that was because of a professional, but it means that it's happening almost over 9 out of 10 filings. It's important you do this right. Here's another one. You're excited. Colleges have offered you. They said, you're welcome in, and you respond to them saying, yes, I'm coming. I always wanted to come to this school. Oops. Once they send that financial aid package, wait a little bit. Be patient. Wait until you've received and evaluated all offers from the schools your child is accepted to. That's going to give you the leverage of having a competitive offer from a similar caliber school that can be used to help you get a better deal from your top choice. Again, we can help you know what those similar caliber schools are. Schools will actually tell and file with the Department of Education. who they consider to be their main competition. And last, of course, mistake number 10 is foregoing professional advice. Okay. If you're being sued for $10,000, you'd consult a lawyer rather than relying on the other party's attorney or just talking to friends on how to fight it. Same logic applies here. It's the most significant financial decision you'll make, or at least one of them. Yet many parents suddenly are like, hey, I'm an expert on financial aid and admissions, and my friends are experts on this. And I'm not saying you cannot handle it on your own. Of course you can. There's more information out there than there ever has been. But if you're going to do it, you got to be willing to become an expert. But remember, you'd be practicing on yourself first time going through this, and those mistakes can be costly. So instead, consider the knowledgeable professional who can guide you through the process and help you to achieve the best possible outcome. It's imperative that all parents file FAFSA, even if you don't think you have enough. It's going to showcase your ability to pay. It's going to attract colleges want full pay families. So they're going to, they do acceptances based on families that they see can, afford to pay. It's going to create competition. Ultimately, parents, are going to, who contribute to endorsements and booster programs, that's going to stand out. And ultimately, you want to be able to understand what are the highly desirable colleges, and you want to be highly desirable to them, and they're going to compete for those students. You want to be able to unlock those merit scholarships, and the forms that you file are going to mean getting the best deal. In short, filing FAFSA is a critical step in securing the most favorable financial package. So don't miss the opportunity by skipping that. Now, I want to share with you what advisors are telling you about how the financial aid admissions process works. I go through this fairly quickly, but when student reaches junior year of high school, families step into this daunting task of college selection admissions process. It involves numerous critical steps, including, identifying potential colleges, navigating the college application process, completing and submitting those financial aid forms. It's so complex that even the Secretary of Education says you basically need a PhD to figure it out. Review and evaluate financial aid packages, negotiate better financial aid packages, make the final college decision and accept that award, strategize how to cover remaining shortfalls. Each of these steps comes with its own set of challenges, complexity, stress, uncertainty, missteps, pitfalls, ultimately can cost you. Success at each stage is going to require time, effort, patience, expertise, all of which are in short supply for busy families. Consider the common outcomes of mistakes of knowledge, or that come from mistakes or lack of knowledge, choosing the wrong school or curriculum, lost aid discounts, the mistakes 1 through 10 that I mentioned and told you to write down, strategies for covering shortfalls. Okay, all of these are going to end up giving you a chance of having a suboptimal outcome. So you might be thinking, and this is where I'm going to start talking about, there's options for families. Some families are just here for education and information, and great, if you've got it, we've covered it. There's a lot there. And you might be thinking, I can handle this yourself. Absolutely you can. Doing so means you need to become an expert. Okay, you need to spend time studying the admissions process. You need to look at its impact on financial aid, and not to mention mastering thousands of pages of rules, regulations required to fully optimize your financial aid outcome. Every family situation is unique, and it's going to take a financial aid specialist to provide a tailored price you need. The cost of college, as high as it is today, it's going to be a complex process, and doing it on your own simply doesn't make sense when viable, cost-effective alternative is available. Again, I talked about being sued as an attorney, okay? So you're looking at one of the most significant financial decisions of your lives. Think about what kind of help you can. And ultimately, some people do want to go alone, okay? Make sure you go through this. You can do it. I mean, again, I've seen families have been very successful. One parent works, the other parent doesn't. This is going to be their full-time job, and they're going to spend 40 hours a week becoming an expert in this. There's more information available than there ever has been. But if you don't have that time, then consider getting professional help. Support from qualified professionals like us that actually care and understand this process to help select the right colleges that fit the student for the right reasons, save money on college costs, the right price, and create a plan for your family that yields confidence. Okay. Through effective and strategic and tactical planning, you can become a savvy, informed buyer of college education. Strategic planning will help understand the big picture, and tactical planning will cover those essential steps, like crafting strong college admissions strategies, mastering college financial aid forms process, exploring funding options, and developing cash flow strategies to cover those gaps. By approaching the college planning with both strategy and tactic, you position yourself to be for the best decisions for your family's financial future, and ultimately having a process to accomplish that is critical. So what are your next steps? Well, if you want more information and want to talk to us, then take us up on our free consultation. Okay. Why you should do this. Imagine being fully confident that you're making the best decisions for your child's future and your family's finances. I've talked to families that you're doing everything right. And that's what we aim to provide through the consultation. We're going to cover your student by getting to know who your child is, strengths, aspirations, unique needs. By understanding your student, that's going to be key to crafting a personalized plan. We need to understand your goals and obstacles. What are your specific goals? What are your retirement goals? What are your long-term goals? What are your short-term goals? What are the concerns you have and the obstacles you're facing? That's is going to allow the conversation to align strategies with what matters to you most. We're in the business of helping to look at what matters to you, and then putting into place the things that we can control to get you there. And finally, we're going to assess the current stage of the college planning process. Where are you? How much have you done so far? Are you just starting out? Are you deep into it? Let's identify the next steps to maximize your process and your success, because our goal is very simple. Here at Mergent College Advisors, we believe you deserve to have 100% certainty and confidence around your financial future. This is why we've designed our proprietary process, the Complete College Solution. It's to help ensure your clients, your financial strategies are going to work in supporting your dreams of sending your child to the college of their choice without being overwhelming, uncertain, or fleecing you financially or taking on a mountain of debt. Okay, we're here to make sure it doesn't have to be overwhelming or uncertain, and with the right guidance, you can confidently navigate this and make informed decisions that will benefit your family for years to come. Now, what do parents really want? We understand that when it comes to this, parents are often approaching this with concern. You want your child to be independent, happy, and successful. Many parents worry that the child doesn't get into what they perceive as the right college. Financial future might be a risk, and that adds a lot of pressure. We understand that in this process. And who wouldn't want their child to receive plenty of scholarships? You might have been told, you do the work, or I'm sorry, you might have even told your child, you do the work, we'll figure out ways to pay for it. But now you're getting closer, and that reality of cost sets in, and you might be rethinking that process, and you want to keep that promise, and you want to keep that promise without sacrificing your retirement savings. At the end of the day, what parents often need, whether you say it or not, is help. So let us provide that guidance and support to help you navigate that complex journey. Ultimately, there are too many costs of waiting. Fewer college choices, fewer cost reduction strategies, college savings, funding options, much larger gap, less available retirement savings, increased stress. Students have to settle for a lesser option, crushing student loan debt, and more. And I want to show you an example. We just saw this. I'm seeing more and more of this from families that are rushing into the college selection enrollment. We received the dreaded call today. Our freshman doesn't feel like he can do it. He's struggling in every single class. To the point, I don't think he'll be able to pass. Mental health at an all-time low. He's ready to withdraw. I don't even know what this will mean financially at this point, but we don't want him to be miserable either. That's for the families that select schools and often rush into it. And of course, this is the combined financial reality for families that procrastinate. Lack of a defined plan or how they'll pay for college without going broke. Over $1.7 trillion in student loan debt down there. And that doesn't include those who are forced to take on other loans like home equity, personal loans, or credit cards. Hope is not a plan. And as we said earlier, the research shows that this is an issue at all wealth issues, higher incomes included. So I wanted to give you a quick, as we summarize this up, I want to give you a quick example. I said I would talk about this, of a family I was talking to earlier today. Real situation. Results are significant, and keep in mind they might be different from family to family, some more, some less. We talked about SAI earlier. This family's SAI is going to be $59,000 in their current situation, or $46,000 on the CSS profile. And three schools they were looking at were Pepperdine, Southern Methodist University, and the University of Texas at Austin. As we discussed, cost of attendance is the sticker price before discount, so that's going to be the left column here. And these schools range between $31,000 and $100,000 a year. And with the current SAI after discount applied, they would be looking at between $31,000 on low end for Texas and $71,000 for high end for Pepperdine. Now, with just a few moves looking at their financial situation, we were actually able to put in quick strategies that moved a couple things around and lowered their SAI from 50 to around 15,000. And as you can see, the immediate impact is now, instead of paying $70,000 a year to go to Pepperdine, they'd be paying at most $37,000. On the low end now, University of Texas is only $21,000. This is up to a savings of $35,000 per year, or $140,000 saved over 4 years. Now we take that, and what if you could put that back into retirement and you could get an average rate of return? That's $1 million more that family just got back to do the things they love to do. How's that feel? That can be a reality. So go ahead. If you have any questions, schedule your free consultation. But if you're going to understand one of our expectations, if you're married, both parents need to attend this meeting because you're both making financial decisions together. That's the way it needs to be. I want to give you one other example. This is Cody. Cody looked at a bunch of schools, high GPA, great test scores. Ultimately, his schools that he wanted to go to, he was waitlisted and denied from almost all, from Stanford as number one choice, and he got very little aid from most of the schools. But USC came back and gave him a $36,000 scholarship. The cost of attendance, $51,000. Final out-of-pocket expense was $15,000, and they actually offered to pay him $3,000 a year in research stipend. And the best part, notice how Duke offered him only $14,900 to go there as a discount to go there for undergrad. At the end, they saved $192,000 with USC, but even better, that Duke came back later and offered a medical and PhD on scholarship. So these planning, it works. And along with that, we were able to work on ways to get their money back. So again, hopefully this gives you a couple of examples of how this can be successful for families, of different ways to look at this, both in school selection and financial, and a lot of significant tidbits tonight that you're finding valuable just walking away, that you can apply immediately no matter what you do. But more importantly, if you're feeling this is overwhelming, if you have questions about what to do, if you want to have the best possible outcome academically, financially, and socially, and you don't have the time to go out there and get a PhD in this, then ask yourself, is it worth having a limited conversation to start to see if it might make sense to learn a few things about your situation, maybe be able to implement some immediate strategies, or get the help you need to have the outcome you desire. Now we've gone ahead and I've had my partner, Craig, who has actually put a couple things into the chat. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to copy a couple things over here. For some reason, we're having some technical difficulties, but I'm gonna go ahead, and we're not able tonight. This is a Zoom issue that occasionally happens. For some reason, it is not allowing us to post into the chat. Let's see here if we can do something. I might be able to do this through the Q&A. I wonder if we can answer a new one. No. So unfortunately, we're having a technical issue tonight on trying to post our link to our to sign up. It does tend to occasionally be a buggy thing with Zoom. And unfortunately, okay. But the good news is we can type this in. So give me a second. I'm going to go ahead and post this to everybody. And of course, we are multitasking at once, so it's going to take me a second here. All right, so I have just posted to everybody our link to sign up to meet with us. There's also, let's see here, there's another link here that Craig posted. I'm going to go ahead and post here to everybody. And now you can see that as well. I also want to know who wants a recording replay. Okay. We can go ahead and send a replay link to anybody. So if you want to have a replay, please put it in the chat and let us know. I also have a great question here from Charlene. Thank you very much. So parents and income and assets equate to the amount of financial aid a student gets. Any amount of money the student has affects the amount of financial aid too. If I understand your question, Charlene, yes, they do equate. It's not a one-to-one, but parents' income is assessed on a weighting. They will take, they look and they assume, obviously, you've got expenses to pay for in your household. So they apply an assessment that can be anywhere from, 20 to 50% of the income that's earned by students or parents. And they will then assume that is going to be part of the equation for the SAI. So if someone makes $100,000, it might be between $20,000 or $50,000 is what they're going to assume you can pay out of pocket just from income. Assets, it's a little bit more favorable. It comes to around 6%. So again, if someone has $100,000 sitting in a brokerage account or cash, could be about $6,000 they're going to assess there. Now, this is just a very simplification. But again, they are looking at that information that you provide and then determining, all right, based on that, this is what you can afford. So if that's important to you to show them less and not have them turn around and tell you, hey, thanks for playing. Here's the information. Now there's how much you're going to owe us. It's going to be important to do some planning ahead of time because there may be ways like I just showed you with this other client to get that down immediately. Okay, so I do see a couple people. Thank you to a couple of people who have responded here looking for the replay. A couple of individuals in here, might have anonymous information. So again, if you did, please email us with your actual information so we can send that out to you. But it looks like we're getting a wild response for the replay option. Charlene, you are very welcome. I also noticed that somebody did put something in the Q&A. Thank you very much. How do we manage FAFSA if projected EFC is high, but you just had a job cut? Apply normal and appeal later, alert somehow when filing the form. Great question. Okay. So some of this depends on when your child's going to school. If you're looking at FAFSA, they are going to look at the previous tax return and the previous tax return. So filing FAFSA for a 2025 student is going to occur this year. Okay, we have a senior in high school. That senior then, of course, is going to be applying for FAFSA in December of this year. When it opens, it normally opens October 1st. They're redoing the system. If anybody remembers the healthcare.org when it came out, not trying to dog government efficiency, but we're a little concerned that a new software system being rolled out this year could have some glitches. Cross your fingers. But instead of being October 1st, in order to have the to have that software rollout, they're opening up FAFSA December of this year. They're going to then, because it's 2024, they're going to look at 2023 and 2022 taxes. FAFSA income is already calculated because they actually pull that automatically from your tax return, and therefore that information is already automatically set. So there's nothing you can really do about reporting that income on FAFSA. Now, if you are looking at CSS profile schools, they actually do it differently. You do have to report to them what your income was, but you're only going to report it for last year's tax return and this year's projected. So with a CSS profile school, which tend to be more generous, but also more selective, those schools are going to give you a little bit of opportunity on the form you file to state, hey, look, my income's down. I project to make a lot less this year. And they're going to take that into consideration. With FAFSA schools, because they're going to get tax return information automatically pulled, it is more likely with those schools you're going to have to come back later and have an explanation to schools about your situation and appeal for, for some reprieve. And in many cases, it's successful, especially in the situation that you're talking about. So if you want to talk more about that, more specifically your situation, again, please set a time. Be happy to provide some more information to you. Okay, great. You are very welcome. All right, let's see here. We have got 3 questions posted, a string to there. No more questions in the chat. I'm sorry, I do see one. My son is a junior. Is it too early to apply for FAFSA? Great question, Chris. It is absolutely too early, and that is not because of by choice. FAFSA is only available to seniors, so it'll be something that as a junior you'll be filing FAFSA next year. By the way, and thank you for those that provided some information in the chat that we can use. I want to also let you know that there is a free report that we have. It is a free college report. Craig, if you want to, I don't know if I posted that, but if you want to give that to me again, I'll go ahead and put it out here. I appreciate it. But we have a free report that for 5 minutes. Again, if you're just trying to figure out, okay, what's my estimated SAI? What is the cost of a couple schools I'm looking at? You can put a little bit of basic information. It is not as thorough as need to be for an exact measurement, but it is a very quick and simple way to get a report that's going to tell you what your estimated cost is going to be up to 3 schools, what your SAI could potentially be with some basic information. And also, it's going to suggest another school or two that might be something affordable. Again, doesn't necessarily meet it doesn't necessarily mean that the schools that it's suggesting to you is going to be the right fit socially or academically. But again, just to give you an idea and share with you that, hey, there are some things out there that are going to be very interesting from a financial affordability standpoint. So I really encourage you. It costs you nothing to do that free report, and and everybody that's filled that report out has come back and said it was one of the neatest things that they've had access to in this it's one of the neatest things that they've accessed. Valerie, I apologize. You're asking about free report. I'm actually posting a link to that right now for you. It's something, again, because we couldn't copy and paste very easily. My team's having some technical troubles. I'm having to put that in manually. So give me 1 second. And I will have that posted here. Make sure I'm typing it right. And nope, I missed a letter on the address. So there we go. That report. So Gary, there you are. No, Valerie, I really appreciate it. We've been over an hour. It's easy with stuff going on with family and distractions to not pay attention. You're sitting there going, hey, I'm still listening. Thank you. I heard something. So I appreciate that you're, being attentive, and sorry for the confusion, but there is the link to that report for you. Again, please, all of you, there's nothing to lose by going out there and getting some really critical information that we talked about today in 5 minutes, just to kind of see where you're at right this second. So, again, let's see. Nope, we still can't copy and paste. I'm going to go ahead and pull the, for those, if anybody's having any trouble with the link that I posted, I may have missed a letter on the HTTP. There's HTTP, HTTPS, and I am putting that in again with the HTTPS so that it actually goes through as a secure link. I'm going to double check that here on my end to make sure it works. And it's taking us to a website, and I believe the one I posted before, let me see if that was a good link. It looks like some people were having some issues with it. No, it looks like whether you use HTTP or HTTPS, if you want to, you can actually book a time with us through our website, so it'll take you there. I also posted that link to take you just directly to our scheduler. Either one of those is going to work. And I've already seen a couple of you have taken advantage of it. Just so you know, it is college funding season. That means we are exceptionally busy. I only have limited space. If you want to get in and talk to me in the next couple of weeks, hopefully sooner better, those spots are extremely limited. We do have some rotation with my team as well, But the longer you wait, it could be weeks, if not month, before you get to talk to us. And for some of you, that may be pushing it out a little too far. So if you are thinking of having a conversation, those of you that have already signed up, congratulations. And for those of you, if you're on the fence, I would jump on that right now. Otherwise, looking back and forth at everything, I don't see any more questions. I do see the majority of people are still hanging on. So thank you for being with us. Clearly, this is important to you. And it is something that matters for you to accomplish. It's something that's been on your mind. And you have a lot of choices of places to be with your life, and you're pulled in a lot of different directions, and you chose to be with us tonight. So thank you very much. So with that, if you have any other questions, our team will be following up with you, or you can reach out to us. Thank you for those emails. Wherever you are and wherever you may be, little Pat McAfee, I just want to say to you, thank you for joining us and being a part of this. Actually, I think that's Colin Cowherd. Regardless, I'm giving a plug here. Thank you for being a part of us tonight. I hope you found this information valuable, and we'll look forward to talking with you soon. And no matter what happens, wish you and your family and your children an extraordinary future. Have a great evening.